can we play that clip from the Minions where Bob says, King Bob!
Yes, sir. King Bob!
Hey!
3, 2, 1, hey.
Wisecrackers.
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 Wisecrackers. Starting now.
Come on down to South Park. Oh, wait, wrong intro. Wisecrackers, Ice Hockey Arena. Yeah, I said that because, I'm wearing a South Park shirt today, and it feels ice cold down here at the ice level. As always is, we fire bar down and we sell it hard every day, every night. Let's get this rocking and rolling. More Stanley Cup playoff action coming your way. I'm Alec, he is Ian. How you doing on this fine night of Stanley Cup playoff hockey?
I am doing very well, sir. I am very well, and I am praying that the Leafs can somehow claw their way out of the pit that they have dug for themselves, and allow us to further to and allow us to cement the ultimate meme in its eternal disgrace.
You had to start that out. We're starting out fiery hot. We're firing on all cylinders early on. That is an explosive start, Ian, to start things off. I know the playoffs are all right now. We will get to the Leafs later on because we have some breaking news coming out of the state of Utah, right by the Great Salt Lake. The Arizona Coyotes are suspending operations. The current organization will be headed over to Salt Lake City as the new ownership group, Smith Entertainment Group, headed by Ryan Smith, has purchased the Coyotes organization, while the current Coyotes, a la Cleveland Browns, are suspending operations entirely, but will get a chance to reactivate their operations in 5 years' time if an arena deal is secured. So what we know of this is that the team, the players, the general managers, the front office, the coaches, they're going to Utah. This is not an expansion draft purpose for the Utah franchise. Well, the Coyotes franchise is basically going to be a brand new franchise, like what was the Browns were in 1999 when they resumed operations, and the Charlotte Hornets, then known as the Bobcats, resuming operations, with the Pelicans/Hornets essentially being an expansion franchise. But real ones know that essentially the Coyotes are going to be a de facto expansion franchise, and it signals that expansion is inevitable. But what do we know of the Utah-Arizona situation, Ian?
Well, I don't know specifics. However, after what seems to be an eternity and close to 30 years of a failed experiment in Arizona, because that's what the Coyotes were. They had, I think, a grand total one playoff run of any true significance where they made the
Western
Conference
Final.
Right, and they lost to the Kings. They never once lived up to that bill again. As a matter of fact, the most recent playoff run that I can think, the most recent playoff appearance that I can think of for them was during the 2020 bubble when the playoffs were expanded to 16 teams.
12 teams per conference, actually.
Right. 12 teams per conference. Thank you for the correction there. Yeah, it was expanded to 12 teams per conference, and they were able to claw their way to a series win on the back of their goalie, Darcy Kemper. But other than that, the Coyotes, the Coyotes are a legacy of failure, but also a legacy pure in just pure incompetence. Because when you look at the Coyotes, what is there other than Shane Doan
Clayton Keller?
and what
Clayton Keller?
Clayton Keller? Yeah, except for those two guys, name something positive that the Coyotes are known for. The only thing that I know that for me the Coyotes are known for, they were the triage tent or the trash can of the NHL. Basically, they were saying, "Hey, we will take all of your terrible players if you give us picks. Like we are the place that you can offload your bad contracts to." That was what the Coyotes were known for me, and that was it. They were never winners. And truth be told, they never should have went to Arizona in the first place. I'm all for relocation and expansion, but make it make sense, because people will point to, well, what about Vegas? That's also the desert. Here's the thing. Vegas already had a history with hockey. They already had an exposure to hockey back in the 90s when preseason games were played. They had, they had not minor league teams, but they had independent league teams. Granted, they all flamed out, but before the Vegas Golden Knights, no, after the Vegas Golden Knights, the Aces came after the Golden Knights, I believe.
I
But
think it was around the
regardless,
time. I can't
yeah,
remember.
but I can't remember either. But see, here's the difference with Vegas. Number one, they showed early that they could gain support, and if we remember, Vegas had, Vegas's expansion happened was it was
2017?
right, yes, it was 2017, but it was also it coincided with one of the worst mass shootings in history, and what that it's not what that was never. Oh, I'm trying to say this. What that allowed the Vegas Golden Knights to do was build a rapport with the city before the season even began. It allowed them to get to know the fans. You had players going door to door or going to, just being out there in the community, connecting with the people. And even before it was shown that, even before Vegas got the rights to expand there, they had to prove it. I mean, they sold out their season ticket holdings before George McPhee, or was it McPhee? No,
It was
no.
McPhee.
All right. Before McPhee even bought the expansion rights, they had to prove that Vegas would support hockey, and they did.
Oh, I thought you were talking about McPhee. Are you talking about the owner, Bill Foley?
Yeah, the owner of Foley. Yes, sorry, not McPhee. Foley. Foley. They had to show that fans in Vegas would support hockey, and I believe they sold out their season. They sold out their season tickets before the team. Before the team was officially confirmed.
And he did exactly that. The same cannot be said when the Coyotes first got there to Arizona. What would it be? The early years of Steve Ellman, or back then when they were rotating between owner to owner to owner because of financial trouble after financial trouble. Jerry Moyes getting himself into financial troubles and a team filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy to where the NHL itself took over ownership. The team almost got sold to Jerry Reinsdorf of the Chicago Bulls and Chicago White Sox. That never materialized. Andrew Barroway, he had his fair share of troubles, as well as a recent domestic dispute. And then Alex Meruelo, yeah, we don't talk about him.
Yeah, things just off the rails. Oh man, you know what? I didn't even know that the Arizona Coyotes almost got sold to Reinsdorf. And for anyone who isn't already familiar with the name Jerry Reinsdorf, that is the owner of the Chicago Bulls and the Chicago White Sox. And all you need to do to understand who Jerry Reinsdorf is, just look up Chicago White Sox fan rants, and you will get a sense of just how hated that man is in the South Side of Chicago.
So bad to where I heard someone saying that he would be happy if, I'm not going to mention it because it's, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It's just.
Well, all you get now is sell the team, Reinsdorf. That's the biggest outcry in Chicago right now. They want Reinsdorf gone. You know, whatever goodwill was made during the Bulls' runs in the NBA, you know, in the 90s, whatever goodwill there was, that is long gone now. And any goodwill that came with the 05 Chicago White Sox is long dead because they haven't been able to get back to where they were from 05.
That is true. And that's especially true with the Coyotes because they are nowhere close to where they were in 2012 and matching where they were at that year. Everything that they know, their team, gone. Now it's off to Utah, and fans over at the city of Phoenix are wondering what's next. Though if I were to play devil's advocate, if it weren't for the Coyotes, we would arguably not have Austin Matthews and Matthew Tkachuk in the NHL today. They were playing hockey around the Arizona area, and even Matthews went to that one game in which Alex Ovechkin scored arguably the greatest goal of all time.
Yeah. Oh, that was. Oh yeah. For those that know of the Alex Ovechkin goal, they understand. If you don't, go look it up.
A true legend will understand this goal. I mean, how did he just slide that right by the goal, went on his back? I mean, you watch the highlight, you'd be stunned. Even Wayne Gretzky, who was the coach of the Coyotes that year, was stunned.
Yep. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player of all time, the greatest of all time, says his jaw hits the floor.
Aladdin style. And we know of Aladdin style, well, if we're speaking of teams that aren't back to where they were as they were last year, we can look at the Toronto Maple Leafs because their situation, they're in a 3-1 hole. And I know at the time that we're recording this, they are playing right now in a 1-1 game in Game 5 against the Boston Bruins. The talk of this series was William Nylander. If he's going to play, if he's going to suit up into the lineup. Well, he has. The cost? Austin Matthews. He's out tonight. Now, Nylander, before we get this sugar-coated or not, well, we're not going to sugarcoat it actually, but Nylander, he was out with what was believed to be migraines. That's why he was wearing the tinted visor, to address his complaints about bright lights, because he might be susceptible to migraines to the way that he has been voicing his complaints. Matthews, on the other hand, he's out with an illness that we don't know of, but the fact that he was rolled out of Game 5 2 days after that he was pulled from Game 4 before the third period by his doctor may suggest that there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, I mean, well-known YouTuber Urinating Tree tweeted about it. He said, "Wait, Matthews has been pulled out of an elimination game. He must literally be unable to move. Because if that man could skate in any capacity, he would be out on that ice."
I feel that the notion is for Matthews is that the more that he plays, the worse the illness is getting by the word that what I'm receiving from doctors close to him as posted on social media around. But because and you look at it, it feels like there's some sort of discomfort into him. Feels like there's something not right.
Well, that does if he in fact oh man, I think sorry. I'm watching the Leafs game as we're streaming this, and Pasternak just took a puck to the back of the leg. And if for those who've been hit in the back of the leg at all, you know what a Charlie horse is. Imagine getting hit by a slap shot.
Oh, that is bad. I mean, he got hit. Was that Pasternak, or was that I can't see who it was. I'm not watching the game currently, but
it was most definitely Pasternak that got hit in the back of the leg with the puck. It wasn't intentional. He just blocked the shot. It was his leg that got in the way of it.
Ooh, yeah, he's hurting as I'm reading all over that now. Though Matthews on the ice, the Leafs' chance of winning in an elimination game, they certainly take a hit. But it's a tie hockey game, and by the looks of it, they are. I need to see this correctly because there's no way that's happening. Out shooting the Bruins 18-7 by this point in time, yet it's tied.
I've been watching the entire game, Alec. This is okay. This is going to shock you. So, Toronto, for the entire first period. Actually, you know what? Hang on a sec. There is a post that perfectly explains what happened in the first period. Hang on. Here it is. From the man Urinating Tree. Have 2 shots all period. Completely dominated by opposition in metrics and offensive zone possession. Give up a power play to the opponent. Tied with the Leafs after 1. Just a classic Bruins moment.
I mean,
2 shots all first period, and they're tied.
There should be no way possible that it should happen, but we're seeing it now. The Bruins, they're going for more defensive identity in this game, and it's paying off for them. They were going a more defensive route like they have all season long. And while it came at the expense of the majority of their offense when they lost Bergeron, Krejci, Hall, Bertuzzi, Orlov, and Hathaway, and Foligno, so 7 players lost in the offseason, they still retain their identity of their defense. The offense is not the same as it used to be, but how? I guess Jim Montgomery, for one, he's sticking to Jeremy Swayman, and it's paying off. He's just lost once to the Leafs not lost once to the Leafs this season. He's undefeated against the Leafs this season. One loss the Bruins took against the Leafs, Game 2 of this series. Of course, that's a classic shocker, Ian.
Toronto and Boston, there's always something.
It has to be. Well, same can't be said for the Canes and Islanders, as the Canes, they're basically taking their anger on the Islanders as we speak after one period's a 3-1 lead there. Most likely you're going to see Canes and Rangers in the second round. Maybe Bruins and Panthers in the second round. So basically the Eastern Conference has been decided by this point unless anything crazy happens. But as we move on to our next discussion here on Let's Get Crackin', well, if we're speaking on something that is worthy about here in the NHL, and this is a storyline that has been developing over the last few days and the past week, right around the city of Vancouver, Thatcher Demko, he went from being day-to-day to being questionable for the rest of the first-round series to officially now a long shot to return for the playoffs. Now, I know Casey Smith and Arthur Shelovs have carried the job nicely for the Canucks in Demko's absence, but you're not getting the same type of goaltending if you're the Canucks in this first-round series and even further down the road. Now, against Nashville, it is doable, and perhaps it's a 50-50 series. You're up 3-1 in the series now, but when you face Edmonton, what's the impact going to be like if you're going to be having a Smith-Shelovs tandem?
Well, at that point, what you hope for is so basically what you have to hope for if you're a Canucks fan is that Casey DeSmith and who's the other goalie? I haven't quite looked.
Yeah, Shelovs.
Arthur Shelov. So what you have to hope for is that those two goalies have an Aiden Hill type of renaissance where because they're allowed, where due to the fact that they're thrust into emergency call-up duty, they learn that it's basically baptism by fire. They will either burn or they will be forged into the strongest metal you have ever seen.
Rise from the ashes of a phoenix.
Yeah, but actually, it's not so much rise from the ashes of the phoenix because they weren't exactly dead. I mean, in terms of Casey DeSmith, yeah, his is more like the phoenix due to just things fell off the rails in Pittsburgh. But yeah, but for Shelov, like I haven't even heard of him taking an NHL start.
I mean, the only NHL experience he had was last season when Demko was hurt, and the Canucks were having to be forced to choose between Spencer Martin, Colin Delia, and Shelovs himself. Shelovs down the stretch was the backup goaltender to Demko last season, and now he's the first-string goaltender with DeSmith coming in.
Right. So with all that being said, if what has to happen is what's just said. The Canucks goalies have to either equal or surpass the either equal or increase the productivity that Demko gave you. You knew who Demko. We all knew who Demko. We all know who he is, and we all know his game. However, the Smith and Selov have. You know what? I'm just gonna call him Arthur because I haven't figured out how to say his last name. The Smith and Arthur have performed valiantly so far. But you're right. The test is against if the Canucks win this series, their next opponent would likely be
the Edmonton
Vegas.
Oilers.
Oh, Edmonton?
Yeah. The Canucks are first in the Pacific, the Oilers second in the Pacific, so it's an intra-division matchup is because of the divisional playoff format. Gone are the days of 1 through 8, even though we wish they would come back, but it's Canucks versus Oilers if we see the two advance.
Oh, not realize that. Okay then. So yeah, your next test is against Edmonton. And against those and against them, well, we just saw we just saw them clean house on the Kings. Or no, that series still isn't going. They took care of business quickly.
Well, they have one game to win, the Oilers. It's a 3-1
Oh,
series lead. The Oilers can close it out, though. And we expected this result again. Let's be honest. The Kings, if there was a team that was going to be the odd man out in the Western Conference, it was LA.
yeah. Okay, so their next test is likely Edmonton, and against McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman. That is a tough ask. So what it's going to fall on is, in certain games, while there were plenty of games this season where it was obvious that that Vancouver's offense was clicking, there were plenty of other games where it was Demko who put the team on his back and goalied the team to wins. They cannot force DeSmith and Arthur to carry that load. Obviously their goalies, that's their job. However, the offense, in order to beat Edmonton, you kind of have to beat them at their own game. And that is, you have to go blow for blow with them. Either that or strike hard, strike fast, and strike early.
It's basically the one way that you can beat Edmonton. If you want to get early goals, you must do so against a team like the Oilers. That and shut them down with your goaltending. That level of goaltending is not going to be available come the second round with DeSmith as your starter. Not without Demko.
Right. And Seelov, maybe Seelov does what Aiden Hill did. But if we remember what was on Aiden Hill's side was an extremely potent offense that could score no matter what line was out there. And while the Canucks are very top heavy, Alec, would you say that the Canucks can score on all four lines?
Top line, that's JT Miller, Pia Suter, Brock Besser. You have Elias Pettersson at the second line. If it's wingers, no matter who they are, it's also a scoring line. Elias Lindholm can be slotted into the top two lines, but he's playing third line center with Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua. That's how deep the Canucks are this year. That fourth line, they're more of a defensive type of line, but they can score on all four lines.
So they can score on all four lines. However, let's say they beat Nashville and Edmonton beats LA, they have to contend with Edmonton. Now, the thing with Edmonton is, from what I know about them in the past, they've never had depth. They've never had scoring depth. Now that probably changed this season. You would probably, Alec, go, yeah.
Adam Henrique added at the deadline. Sam Carrick at the fourth line to bolster things up. This is the best that we've seen the Oilers this year in the Connor McDavid era.
Yeah. So with that being said, so you're going up against another team who has four lines of scoring, but their goalie is proven, because this is the goalie that they've been winning with all season. It's still Stuart Skinner, right?
Stuart Skinner, it is.
Right. So this is not a revolving carousel of goalies. This is this is consistency here. So that's what the Canucks have to contend with. And yes, Casey DeSmith and Arthur, they did well when they've done well when called upon. But when you have to, let me put it to you this way: having to, like, a goalie having to try and save shots from McDavid and Draisaitl, that would be scary, and that would be scary in and of itself. Now, what looks to be an absolutely genius signing by Ken Holland when signing Zach Hyman to a 7-year deal has turned into one of the best
Third
third forwards and one of the most potent third scoring options in the league, with Hyman scoring 50 plus or 60 plus goals this season.
50 plus.
And doesn't he have a hat trick in a playoff game?
He does.
So yeah. So you're a backup goalie and a third string goalie having to be thrust into duty because of an injury to the starter, and you have to contend with that plus decent scoring depth. Yeah, you're gonna need. First of all, your defense is going to need to be on their horse the entire time, but you need your offense to just pepper that goal and get the puck in the back of the net to the point where it's suffocating for the Oilers.
And don't stop about it. And hey, you reckon that Shaq Hyman is going to continue his dominance in Edmonton?
Oh, I see. Here's the thing. I mean, it could, at the rate he's going. I mean, when he was first signed, we all were looking at it. We were all flabbergasted because we all believed that the scoring touch that Hyman had was unsustainable.
Now take
He
a
has
look at
proved
it now.
that. Yeah, he has proved that theory wrong year after year, and it's almost. Alec, was Zach Hyman playing for which team was Zach Hyman playing for before he got signed by the Oilers?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh my God, is this? Oh my God, is this another Brian Bradley situation where they just let? I mean, Brian Bradley, I think, was a center, but you know what I mean. You know, they let Brian Bradley go in the expansion draft for Tampa, and lo and behold, he becomes the first franchise face for that team.
Oh, this feels like, if I'm Toronto, this feels like Brian Bradley all over again when you put it like that. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It would be, I get it. You know, the Leafs have high-end talent across the board. They have scoring, they have goal scorers across the board, but with Hyman, I mean, and I get it. At the time, we were all thinking that it was unsustainable, but now, it really is a hindsight is 2020 moment because of what he's done for the Oilers. It used to be, okay, they have McDavid and Draisaitl, but if we shut those guys, but if those guys aren't going at full tilt night after night after night and not scoring for the whole team, then we have a shot to win. Not anymore. because now you have a third guy to worry about that isn't Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. No disrespect to him, he's still a decent player. But now you have a guy who is a even more of a scoring threat in Zach Hyman.
That is true. Not to mention, you have to account for one player we didn't mention yet, the explosive Evan Bouchard.
Yep, forgot about him too. What was his goal total for this season, Alec?
So to recap that, Bouchard, he got that big boost when Tyson Barrie got traded to Nashville in the Matthias Ekholm trade, and it helped out Bouchard in forming that top pairing. Bouchard this season has scored 18 goals, power play quarterback 1, and top offensive defenseman on the team. He has defensive issues, but with Ekholm, that's mitigated.
Oh, he's a defenseman and he can score?
Yep.
Oh, Lord. So, and let me guess, he plays on the first defensive pairing with the McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman. Or is Hyman on the first line?
McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman is the first line. Then you got the top defensive pairing of Bouchard with Ekholm.
With Jesus, that's that is a five. That is, you know what that is? That right there. We might as well, Alec. We might as well dub that line the Infinity Gauntlet.
Got to get a 6-man on the ice for 6-on-5 situations. Yeah, get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in there.
Yep, and then you have a legit Infinity Gauntlet because wow, and oh my god, how is Swayman doing this?
Oh,
How is Swayman saving everything?
oh, that's all
um,
Toronto. That's us right now.
Oh, it's a brawl. It's a full. Yep, it's a full tilt brawl now.
Oh, I gotta get on Fubo if I want to just multitask on this right now. Full on line brawl 5-on-5.
Well, it was getting to that point. It just after a dust up in front of the Bruins goal, just guys came out of the pile swinging.
Oh my. So anyway, I started swinging, says Danny DeVito probably.
Yep.
Oh, God, we love playoff hockey, Ian. And speaking
Yes.
of playoff hockey, let's go ahead and get our picks in. What will be your most surprising teams of the playoffs and your most disappointing teams of the playoffs?
As of right now, or just what could be?
Let's say as of right now.
Okay. As of right now, I don't know if you can call it disappointing in the case of Nashville because, well, you know what? No, it's leaning towards disappointing for Nashville because they are down 3-1 and the Vancouver Canucks have gone through 3 goalies in 4 games, but they're down 3-1. So in that sense, it's kind of disappointing. If they were down 3-1 and it was just Thatcher Demko, and it was just Thatcher Demko doing all the goaling, it wouldn't be that surprising. But the fact that you not only went up against the backup goalie twice. You also went up against their third string goalie and still somehow managed to lose.
Especially
So
you're up 3-1 in game 4 with 3 minutes left in regulation.
Exactly, and you let Brock Besser pull off one of the. Did he have a hat trick that game?
He had a hat trick, and his third goal was perhaps the best one.
Oh yeah, the empty netter to the empty netter
That rang
to
off the pipe for Colton Sissons.
yeah, right. And with that, so Nashville would be one of them. Other than that,
Can we count
you-
Winnipeg into disappointing teams?
here's the yeah, because going into this, going into just the season, it was a question of how the Avalanche would perform due with the litany of injuries that plagued the team. So with that being said, the fact that the Winnipeg Jets, after such a strong regular season, are down 3-1 against the Avalanche, I kind of expected better. Now, here's the thing: I haven't been able to watch those games. I assume that Hellebuck is starting in goal for the Jets.
He is, and somehow he's not looked himself in this series. They've given up
Yeah.
6 goals in game 1. They've given up 6 goals in another game, 5 goals in another. So Hellebuck, he's clearly not himself.
Yeah. So with that being the case, definitely the Jets is one of them. I'm not gonna count the Kings because let's be honest, who really gave them a legit chance against the Oilers? I didn't.
I mean, we all expected this would happen. That the Kings,
Yeah.
that the ceiling I put the Kings in is that they would steal one game. They did steal a game. I think that's going to be all they can win.
Yeah. I mean, the Capitals was basically a pity seeding. Has anyone else been beaten yet?
Well, the Islanders, they could be beaten anytime soon with if them being down 2 against the Hurricanes, unless if I last check where they're at now. They're down 1. They get 1 back, but still with the Hurricanes up 3-1 in the series, I think it's safe to say that we can call this series wraps and the Canes can face the Rangers.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's not that disappointing for the Islanders because we were all just shocked that they somehow made it after slumping as hard as they did in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, we were wondering if they were even going to be in the playoffs at all. We were thinking teams like Pittsburgh, Detroit, possibly in contention for a playoff spot. Hell, even Philadelphia, which to the point of Washington, instead of getting mad at the Caps for not showing up, we should be mad at the Flyers for letting this happen.
Let's see for.
I mean, you seriously
For-
got blown out by the Canadians in an 8-game losing streak?
Yeah, and you know what? Let's go ahead. It's not disappointing, but more of an inevitable. The era of Stamkos in Tampa Bay is done. This was less of a disappointment and more of a mercy killing.
Yeah, let's be honest. I feel the Bolts, they're going to give Stamkos another contract if he's willing to stay, which I think he is, because he is their franchise, the heart and soul of the team. I feel they're going to give him another deal just to ride out the rest of the years as a Bolt. Have his jersey hung up at the rafters up there with Kucherov, Point, Vasilevsky, all those guys in the Stanley Cup runs. But let's be honest, the Lightning's run has driven its course already. They're top heavy, and They're not as deep as they used to be. They're not as defensively sound as they used to be. It's over for the Bolts.
Yeah, and they, Lightning fans, they shouldn't be disappointed with what they've gotten. I mean, you had a back-to-back champion. Did they win three separate Stanley Cups or just those two back-to-backs?
3 separate. The other one was 04.
Right. So Lightning fans, as of recent, with the most recent core, you shouldn't be looking at this quite as a disappointment, because what this signals is, you're going through what Pittsburgh is gonna go through. And if your management team is smart, they'll realize that the time for playoff pushes and all that, the time for that is over. Your next bet, your next move should be to start over. Now, likely that's not going to happen, and that is going to completely screw up the team for the foreseeable future if they don't embrace a rebuild. But, I mean, Alec, what do the Lightning actually have in their farm right now? I mean, they traded so much for Tanner Jeannot, and it didn't pan out.
No, if we're looking at their farm, the prospects I can think of for the Bolts are Hugo Alnefelt, Isaac Howard, and Dylan Duke. And Howard and Duke, they play in the NCAA. Howard with Michigan State, Duke with Michigan, so they have some familiarity with one another. I'm not sure if they're going to get onto the NHL team in Tampa, but I think Syracuse could do for them. I'll start at Syracuse for the two of them. NHL, I'll wait a bit for them.
Right. So, actually, yeah. So Tampa Bay, Lightning fans, if any listen to this broadcast, if your management team is smart, and this is assuming that everything goes right, you embrace a period of maybe 2 to 3 years of being in the lower, you embrace being in the basement for a 2 to 3 year period where you don't deliberately tank, because teams will get penalized for that, but you sell off all your valuable pieces, and yes, the performance will go down. However, if these prospects pan out, you likely won't have to deal with losing for long. But right now, Stamkos, he's still good. It's not like he's bad. Stamkos is not particularly bad, but he's old. I think the days of playoff runs for the Lightning with Stamkos, they're done. Which means you have to embrace a youth movement. And if your best youth is not quite ready yet, then maybe it's time for a brief intermission.
That's true. About the Lightning, about embracing the future, the youth movement. If we're speaking of youth movements around, well, I know there are teams that are embracing that, such as Detroit, so Tampa can do that. Pittsburgh may as well do the same thing, but that's sooner rather than later for the Penguins. But also, if we're speaking of the youth for several franchises, the Canucks, to a sense, Hoglander has been good for them. But if we're Boston, we could point to Matt Poitras before his season-ending injury, and Johnny Beecher on the fourth line. If we're looking at several young studs that have been panning out with their teams. Connor McMichael with the Caps as well. So there are some young pieces that can pan out on the long term for several teams, and that can definitely come with the Bolts. Their time is come and gone in playoffs, and I think it is time that they should realize that soon enough they'll be going on to their rebuilding stage. Though also, if we're looking towards best teams in the playoffs, who's been the best team thus far?
The the best team thus far, I'm gonna have to go with the Rangers. I mean, they've looked. I mean, I know it was the Capitals, but they looked unstoppable.
I mean, they can win in every which way, whether it be close games, blowouts, or tight checking games. This Rangers team feels like no matter how they do their games, they pull off wins in any which way possible. Even if it is uncomfortable, you have to learn to win uncomfortable games, and they've succeeded in doing so. For my pick, I know you said it's the Caps for the Rangers. My pick for best team so far in the playoffs, I'm going with my Stanley Cup pick, the Florida Panthers. Now, I know they've lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in one game, but there's no shame in doing so. You could just shake that one off, carry over to the next game, refocus, and I feel it's a testament to how Paul Maurice has turned his team around in the span of 2 years to also account for defense. 2 years ago, it was their offense accounting for things. Now it's their defense that is into the mix as well. While the offensive production has been down, it's still solid as ever. The power play numbers are not as they used to be, but the Panthers, they have a loaded roster, offensively, defensively, and goaltending is getting hot at the right time. Yes, Sergei Bobrovsky had that one game in Game 4, but outside that, he's been very sharp. So is the rest of this team. Defensively focused and buying into this north-south philosophy that Maurice has implanted on this team. The Matthew Tkachuk trade looking better than ever before.
Oh yeah, I mean, man, you know, it's when we both know, Alec, that when you trade a significant number of assets for, because they only got Kachuk, right? They didn't get a pick or another
They got
player.
one pick.
They got one pick, but I'm guessing it wasn't a high round.
Fourth rounder.
Which in hockey is still a decent, that's still a decent pick. But the point is, what you basically got in that trade was one true impact player. And when you trade significant assets for a player like that, it is truly the epitome of boom or bust with that. Because if it busts bad, and you are set, and your team is likely set back for a while. In the case of the Panthers, that Matthew Tkachuk trade, that is the best. It has gone probably outside of winning the cup so far. This is the best outcome that the Panthers could have hoped for with this trade. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you said the offensive numbers are down. Does that include Kachuk?
He's been on a slow start this season, but he has since picked it up.
Right. So Matthew Kachuk is still Matthew Kachuk, which means he's scoring goals. He's dishing the puck. He's doing what every elite offensive player is supposed to do. And he's doing it in the playoffs.
Yeah, there was the case that I made as soon as last season that he's the most dominant player in the league. And that does not equate to being the best player in the league. Best player in the league means you have all the attributes and that you are the class of the NHL. most dominant player in the league, meaning that you excel in 5 categories in the NHL: offense, defense, physicality, leadership, and clutch. Tkachuk is all 5.
Exactly. So with that being said, and let's also, we can talk about Kachuk all day long. Let's also look at the other cogs of the Panther machine. You have the wily veteran in Aaron Ekblad, who, if I remember correctly, last season he was either absent or just injured or severe or heavily injured during the last playoff run.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he had 4 different injuries, and he played through all 4 of them, even dislocate shoulder.
Right. So there's Aaron Ekblad. You have a weapon. No, what you have is a Swiss Army knife by the name of Carter Verhaeghe.
For sure.
I mean, just he will. You know who I equate to Carter Verhaeghe? He is the. He's He plays on the top line, but he's like that sixth man who can strike at any moment. What you don't expect, you just don't. You see him coming, but you don't expect him to be where he actually is, and he'll make you pay for it. I mean, he's fascinating to me.
Truly is.
And of course, Bob. That man, Bob. Sergei Bobrovsky.
Can we play that clip from the Minions where Bob says, "King Bob"?
Yes, sir. King Bob.
Hey!
Yes. That's pretty much Sergei Bobrovsky, because it's amazing. Because 3 or 4 years ago, when Bobrovsky is 2024. Bobrovsky is what, 4 or 5 years into the contract that he's signed with the Panthers.
This is year 5.
This is year 5, and he signed a 9-year deal.
7-year deal.
7-year deal, but it was at what?
10 million a year.
At 10 million a year. So this is his 5th year with the Panthers, and the first couple years looked to be kind of shaky. Like, maybe this wasn't the best investment for our team. He has shut that talk down with a vengeance, because his performances have been astounding, to the point where there are games where, while yes, the offense scored the goals to win, you could say that Bobrovsky won those games by himself. I look at specifically that I believe it was a 5 overtime epic. What was it? The Panthers and the Jackets that had the 5 overtime epic?
Well, that was the Panthers and Hurricanes. It was 4 overtimes with Bobrovsky in net with the Florida Panthers. But it ended with 12.7 seconds left in the 7th period.
Oh, the 7th overtime.
No, not 7 overtime. It's 7th period, which means 4th overtime.
Right. The 4th overtime epic. He was amazing during that run, but truly, if the Panthers win the Cup this year, this will be the magnum opus. Or no, even if they win the Cup this year, I will say the magnum opus of Sergei Bobrovsky will forever be last year's playoff run, because you're down 3-1 against the Boston Bruins, the greatest team in NHL regular season history. You clamped down for 3 straight games in order to, and basically just goalie them for three straight games and pull off one of the greatest upsets in recent memory.
Even in league history.
Yeah, exactly, even in league history. And not only that, like, that by itself would be worthy of praise. Not only that, you take your team, your team behind your productivity then goes on to the Stanley Cup Finals, where you go. How many games did they go with Vegas?
5. Even though they lost, it's still a valiant effort in getting past the Eastern Conference. They took down Toronto in 5, swept the Canes in the conference final, and while they did lose in the Stanley Cup final, no shame to the Panthers.
Not at all. I mean, especially when, even without the post Stanley Cup playoff, even the news afterwards, even without the news afterwards that the Panthers were playing with a litany of injuries, that run alone just earned the respect. It should have earned the respect of the league. But now you got, to my knowledge, a fully healthy Panthers team who completely imposed their will on a Tampa Bay Lightning team who's well past their prime, but regardless, you still beat them in a gentleman's sweep convincingly. So yeah, Alec, you're right. The Panthers are truly the best team right now. You may look at the Rangers and how they sweat the Cats. Truly, yeah, the Panthers are the best team. Would you say that Florida and Edmonton are the most complete teams in the playoffs this year?
I would say Florida and the Rangers this year coming out the East. If I were to pick a Western Conference team that's the most complete, I could argue the Dallas Stars.
Except they're in danger, though, aren't they?
No, they even the series with 2 crucial wins on the road at Las Vegas. 2-2 is the series, headed back to the Big D, the Metroplex, Dallas,
Wow.
Texas.
Wow. So they won. So what you're saying is, in that series, neither team has won at home.
Neither team has won at home. It's all the road teams thus far.
Dang, sounds like the 2019 World Series all over again.
Or how about that 2019 first round series between the Jets and Blues, where it took until Game 6 for a home team to win.
Yeah. Oh man, Alec, that 2019 run, man. Truth be told, I kind of showed up late because I wasn't really familiar with the game. Certainly wasn't familiar with their game. Actually, no. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna tell the truth. Nobody was familiar with St. Louis's game because anyone ever saw was them losing, and then they switched the flip and everyone else was cooked.
Oh, that's truly the most remarkable story in the NHL in our recent memory. I mean, you don't see this at all. That's a once in a lifetime season.
Yep, and it was glorious.
Oh,
But this season, yeah, I would say you're right. The Panthers and the Rangers in the Western Conference Finals. Yes, the Dallas Stars. I would say no, you're right. Just the Stars, because have the Oilers gotten better on defense, or is their style more offensive heavy?
while they still are offensive heavy to an extent, defensively, with the addition of Paul Coffey to the coaching staff, you could say that the defense has gotten better for them.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just put it at that. That Coffey, he is the defensive whisperer for the Oilers. So, is there anything else that you want to note before we wrap this segment up?
Nope. What's the next talking point?
Well, this isn't really a talking point, but before we say our goodbyes to in this episode, just want to note that recently is with the heaviest of hearts that we have to announce that Bob Cole, legendary broadcaster for Hockey Night Canada, has passed away at age 90. He died peacefully at his home at Newfoundland and Labrador. And he'll be remembered for his iconic voice, his hockey smarts, everything, the way he brings an audience together all throughout the great nation of Canada. He will forever be missed. Heavens gain another legendary broadcaster. And I'm really wishing the best to his family. Wishing his family well.
I gotta be honest, I wasn't really familiar with Bob Cole. Maybe I've heard his broadcast and I just didn't know who it was. When did he broadcast?
His long legendary run spanned 50 years from 1969 to 2019.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard his voice before and I just don't know who it was, but yeah, he goes up there with some of the greats. He goes up there with John Madden, Pat Summerall. He goes up there with Big Vin. For the I'm sorry, not Big Vin. Oh yeah.
Vince
He
Scully,
goes up.
you say.
Yeah, him. Vin Scully. He also goes up there. Who's another broadcaster that everyone just adored?
Well, for anyone who's familiar in the Buffalo area, Rick Jenneret.
Yes, he passed away last year or this year?
Last year.
He passed away last year. Yeah, he goes up there with the best.
Yeah, the best of the best. Our heaviest of hearts and our condolences out to the Cole family in these hard times. And as we say goodbye to you guys in this episode, it's a reminder, cherish who you have around you. Cherish your loved ones. Be there for one another. Hug them. Tell them that you love them every day. They mean everything, the world to you. Have a good day.
Yes, sir.
Have a good night. Have a good afternoon wherever you are watching this broadcast. We'll see you in the next one.